You're listening to The Manning Report with your host, James David Manning. The news behind the headlines.
All right, everybody, Tribulation Trump is over in France and on Normandy Beach, Omaha Beach, and celebrating the 75th anniversary of D-Day. That was one of the most massive, if you will, troop deployments in the history of troop deployments. And as America, as Churchill and Roosevelt got together to retake France, as you remember, that France fell to the Luftwaffe, to Hitler. He was able to take France and to take her down and to occupy France, occupy a large segment of France, which then, of course, it was the birth of the French resistance movement and the catacombs throughout France as the resistance movement. But Hitler was able to march his panzer, by that I mean tank divisions, down the Champs-Élysées, and he was able to take over the entire nation of France as the French soldiers were, I don't know whether they were good fighters or not, but they fell to the power. And just across the English Channel, from France into England, some 20-some mile stretch of Atlantic Ocean was England. And it was just a matter of time, according to many war historians, that Hitler could move from France, his perch in France, and then take down Churchill and England. And the battles raged as the Luftwaffe, which is the name of the French, of the German Air Force, pounded London with its bombings day and night, as they tried to soften up what Hitler would do in landing on the shores of London, of England rather, and taking the United Kingdom. While at the same time, Eisenhower, along with the Roosevelt and Churchill, had aligned themselves with during a similar kind of takedown of France. And historically, some of the great battles of World War II were fought in France. The Battle of the Bulge, a bridge too far, a Battle of the Bulge, pardon me, was fought in France, and as the French resistance and many of the American soldiers had landed. And one of the greatest decoys in the history of decoys was the fact that the American forces blew up balloons and made those balloons look like they were tanks and military artillery, machine guns, and etc. Interesting time. But as those soldiers landed on Omaha Beach, as they got off those water rafts, bullets ripped through the hearts and heads of thousands, of tens of thousands of those brave soldiers in World War II who got off those boats crossing the English Channel and waded into the water and up to Omaha Beach. And many died as the machine gun nests that were paused and waiting for them, the German Waffe machine gun, just ripped their hearts and ripped their heads apart. And so there is a cemetery there in Normandy, France, for the tens of thousands of soldiers that died in that contest. However, Roosevelt and Churchill were able to prevail. They were able to land. I think one of the places where they were able to land was in Calais and Normandy and Omaha Beach and several other stretches along the northwestern part of France, and finally be able to move into France and take France back from Germany, from Hitler, and drive Hitler back into Germany and ultimately back into Berlin with the fall of Berlin. But it's an interesting historic read for what is happening. And Trump is over there now, the burial ground of tens of thousands of American soldiers that lost their life on Omaha Beach. I'm not sure what an idiot like that is doing, because, you know, Trump was a draft dodger. Trump dodged the draft of Vietnam and should have gone to fight for Vietnam, except his daddy was rich and he was able to pay off some podiatrists to say that Trump had bone spurs. So he was challenged yesterday by those in the audience of him. He has no military experience, and he has no military attachments, and the only thing that's associated with Trump in the military, the brave soldiers that died for our nation, is that he avoided the draft when he could have fought for our nation in the Vietnam conflict. And then beyond that, one of America's great military heroes of the Vietnam area was John McCain. And Trump fights John McCain, trumps him like Trump treats John McCain like he's a black man. He just treats him worse than a black man. The way he talks about him, where he downgrades him, and though John McCain spent 5 years in a jail in Hanoi as a captain, John McCain was a pilot in the Air Force. Navy, I'm sorry. His plane went down there in Hanoi. He was captured, beaten, arms broken, tortured, and left in prison for 5 years. And Trump ridicules him. So, so it's a big farce. I want to give the British people kudos for keeping a stiff upper lip, because they know that Trump is an idiot. But yet the Queen has had to act like he is really a head of state. Trump is no head of state. Trump is a a-hole. And so they had to keep a relations with America, and hopefully Trump will one day be removed and relations with America can come back to normalcy. But it is really a joke watching Trump in Europe and being a part of the 75th anniversary of the World War II. You know, my stepfather, Willie Patterson, fought in World War II, and he contracted a disease. I forget now the islands out in the Philippines where he was stationed and where he fought, and it was just during the time of the immigration and bringing forth of the black regiments against and the separation of fighting forces. But my father carried a rifle and fought in World War II and was able to fight Germans, and wherever they were found, he was able to fight, and he lived to come back home. My stepfather did. And so for Trump to be over there parading as some sort of a commitment of America, it is really a joke. And for every soldier who died, and for all the parents of the soldiers that died, it is an insult. But I guess that's the way it is, and people are just keeping silent about it. But those were some dark, dark days when what you see now, the footage of the thousands of planes that left England flying to give cover to those landing on the beaches of Normandy and Omaha and the northwest part of France. But today it's a memorial site, and it's a time of great reflectance of the 75 years that has happened since one of the greatest wars of all times in World War II. This is a bit of a news blog we do, looking at spiritual wickedness in high places for the most part, making some observations about it and giving people a biblical foundation to the way of interpreting, rather than have Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or Janine Pirro or Anderson Cooper or Rachel Maddow or Don Lemon, Rush Limbaugh interpret what's going on in the world. You come to me and I'll tell you based on what the Word of God says. They'll just give you their worldly, sinful view. But the Manning Report will tell you what God has said, whether to say yea or nay, whether to go or to stay. You'll be led by the word of Almighty God. Come to the Manning Report on a daily basis to interpret the spiritual wickedness in high places, because there's plenty of it that's going on. And so I am he. I'm the Lord's servant, James David Righteous Rebel Manning, and I'm here to serve you with news and information.